Welcome back, everyone. So this is just another short video for those of you that are just learning web development, particularly those that are moving into maybe a front-end development. So this tutorial takes you through the basics of how to style an element. So very fundamental, very beginner stuff, but obviously important to know. So there are three main ways you can style an element. So I've got this here. This is just a copy from W3 Schools. You'll learn as you go into development. It's no use doing it yourself if you can borrow it. So just restyle it in the way you need it. So we have inline, internal, and external. So inline is by using the style attributes inside the HTML element. So we'll go through that in a second. Internals, adding the style elements in the head section. So I'll also go through that. And externals, where you create a whole different style sheet and you link it to the HTML document that you're using, which is 99% of cases. And for anyone going into any kind of professional environment, this is what's going to be used. So let's start off. First off, we'll need everyone to install Live Server. So it's an extension of VS Code. You install it, enable it. What it does is it launches a development local service. So as you can see, I have my browser here. Once I open a Live Server, it will open up a version of what we're doing within our VS Code environment. So very helpful to see the changes that we're making. So first off, let's create an index.html file. So for anyone that doesn't know this, a quick shortcut to get a boilerplate. I'm using Mac, so look up the PC commands, but on Mac it's Shift, exclamation mark, and hit Tab. So that'll give you a basic boilerplate with head, body, and your HTML and doc type tags. So let's create an element so that we can style it. So we'll create a H1. So heading 1 for those who are very, very, very new to web development. So style me, let's save that. So our inline styles have to go within this section. So let's add a style. So you'll notice that when I start to type it, VS Code actually starts to prompt us on what it thinks we want to add. So the style comes from a thing called emit. So you'll notice as you use VS Code more, it makes it a lot easier to shortcut it and go straight to what you think. If VS Code is suggesting what you want to go to, just hit Tab. So it's correct. I was trying to add style tags within this element. So first off, before we do anything, we add any styles in this. Let's have a look at what it looks like before I start styling. So let's open it up with Live Server. So there we go. So style me. Let's inspect it. You can right click to inspect and then use this little arrow, hover over it. So you'll see it's 32px, which is the size, and the style, the font is Times New Roman, and the color is 000, which is black. So those are things called user agent style sheets. Basically, there's no style assigned in the order of the cascade, which is CSS, the cascading style sheets. There's different specificity. So this is just what we get if there's no styles attributed to this element. So let's style it. So I want to color this one. Let's go with the stock standard red. And now let's save that. And what we should see is a red style me. Perfect. Okay. So what about if we want to change the font size? So as you can see, Emmet's suggesting what I want. Font size, maybe let's increase it to, let's make it big because it is a heading. So 72px. Save that. There we go. So as you can see, it's starting to style the element. So now what we want to do is we want to see the next one, which is using internal. So still not the way you should be doing it, but you will see it somewhere and it's a good way to learn it, I suppose. So let's save that and it should revert back to the original. There we go. So let's go up in between our head tags here and we'll add some style tags. So there we go. Because this is a H1, we can just add H1, which is the shortcut. Obviously, if it's a H2, H3, it's a paragraph, we can do whatever we want. So H1, and we're going to add, so within this we'll need these curly braces, and we're going to do the same thing we did before, but obviously in a different way. So let's make it red. So there we go. And maybe we want to do something like make the background a different color. So let's make the background something random, and we're going to land on indigo. It's going to be a very bad color combination, but there we go. So I won't get too much into why this goes across the entire browser. Those are kind of different lessons, and I might get into that in future ones. But as we can see, so now we're adding our styling within our head tags. So let's remove that. Now we'll revert back. So that was internal by using style tags in the head section. Now we're going to do our external style sheet, which you should be using, and 99% of the time, if you go to any professional environment, this is probably what they're going to be using. If they're not, you should be a little bit concerned. So the way we do this is, first off, we need a file that is CSS. So we can call it whatever you want, but most people just call them style CSS, whatever you want. Hit enter, and now we have it. So in our index file, we're going to link this, but first off, we're going to style it. So it's a H1, curly braces again, color, let's do aqua. So I'll hit save. Obviously nothing happens because this sheet is not linked to this. So this style sheet is not applying anything to this particular element or anything within it at the moment. So what we have to do is we have to link it. So in the head, we type in link, shortcut Emmet, there we go. And now we link our style tag in where it says href. Okay, so style CSS. Now we save, and when I hit save, this should change to aqua, I think we chose. There we go. Yeah, so we've styled our H1, but let's say we have another H1 and we call it style me 2. Okay, that's great. So now each one we create is picking up the styles, but what about if we don't want it to be this color for every single H1? How do we do that? So within the H1, the opening tag, what we add is things called classes. So a class is something that we can use to basically target this specific element and change it to whatever we want. And that will only apply to anything we add this class to, which is the fundamentals of CSS styling, is adding classes, adding IDs, targeting elements specifically. So let's add a class of, well, this is our heading, it's heading 1, but it's actually our heading 2. So let's save that. So we haven't actually done anything to this one yet. So let's copy that. Let's go back to our style sheet and paste that in. So you'll notice it's starting to chuck an error here. The reason it is because when you're using classes, you need a full stop at the start. Okay, and then we go through the same process with the curly braces and color, and instead of aqua, let's go with coral. Okay, so now we save this. So now we can see that our first one remains aqua because generically the H1s everywhere have kind of picked up that aqua color. But now because on this element we've added a class of heading 2, only elements with heading 2 will become coral. Okay, so we can add that class to basically anything, but obviously we've been specific with our headings, so you want to name them to kind of what you're using it for. So we also have things called IDs. So we can target elements with IDs. Generally, people use classes when targeting with CSS, but you can use IDs. So let's go with heading 1, and we'll save that. So now let's add a head ID. So instead of classes where they start with full stop, IDs actually start with a hash. So we call that heading 1. And instead of aqua, let's go with a with a deep pink. Interesting. Okay, so let's save that. And there we go. So you might be asking, we have 3 different ways that we've styled in the style sheet. So we've done just by the element itself. So we've gone through the element. We've also gone through the ID, and now we've also gone through class. So there are things called specificity in CSS, which means basically the order of precedence. So who's the winner, basically. So, out of all these 3, which one is the most important? In this case, it is this one. So let's just move that one to the top. So that one will always take precedent. IDs will always take precedence over classes and just styling the element itself. Then classes and then elements. So within the structure, that's basically how it gets picked up. And just to prove my point, so this has an ID of heading 1. Maybe let's ask a class of heading 1. So let's save that. Go back to our style sheet, add a class. So we'll just color it to see which one actually wins in terms of styling this element. So let's go with forest green. We'll save that, and it stays pink. Okay, but if we remove the ID, now we should get that forest green. There we go. And then if we remove the class, then we're left with the initial styling. Okay, and then we remove the initial styling, we're back to our user agent style sheet. Okay, so maybe in a future lesson I'll go over things like specificity, because there are different things, just like inline styling will always take precedence over these 2, etc., but different lesson, different topics. So hopefully you've learned something from this, and look out for more videos in the future. Thanks, everyone.